on that planet Mars. So she would get experience here also in being a spy. For in those ancient times, there was a growing split of trust between the Draco-humanoids and the shorter Greys, who had been created to be servants, yet not most of a good character they have. They had horrible characters, and they were mostly very devious and certainly not to be trusted without an officer with a weapon off to his side to watch them work closely. Now, the Draco-humanoids were onto that bad behavior long before the human humanoids, who didn't visit the planet much, had come to those same understandings. But the Draco-humanoids there on ancient Mars, they still held tight to the ancient ways of the Draco dragons in truthful business dealing, as well as the pride of different variances of cultural histories of the Dracos that numbered in the many millions and longer solar years, which the Mars Draco-humanoids held very tight to. Now, the leaders of those colonies of Draco-humanoids despised even the fact that those meddlesome Mars Greys had been created in the labs to do the work in the first place, because it was for another race of humanoids, in which these humanoids were very powerful in their tall bodies, and they were very intelligent, but they were inherently lazy to their own core, to even do simple manual labor without the desire of ordering someone else to do what they could have done themselves. So this commander of the Draco colonies, this is what he said. This is on file. He said, "There is no honor in creating a sub-quality race of beings, period, much less who can not even trust themselves, much less be a good worker at any level." Fused loudly this Grand Master, the leader of the Draco-humanoid colonists on ancient Mars. He said, "Mark my words," as he turned to tell his officer next to him, "things like this here, is what causes long interripplings in the living universe, which could come back much worse than a plague, which could kill whole planets, beings within them. For we have no idea on just how many other worlds those who created the lab Greys, those creators, where they went, and how many other variances of them have they been created to work for them, simply because the creators of them were just too damn lazy." This infuriated even more that Grand Master, much less if they have even shown lesser pittles of responsibility to their other created lab Greys. They have shown no responsibility, but they're going all over the place, dropping these little monsters off and not taking care of them. For those deviant little bastards, those created lab Greys will in time be so overproduced and out of control, truly, they will darken whole areas of the living universe like perpetual perfect storm, which has no foreseeable ends anyway around it. Wow! This was really a bold statement by that Grand Master. Now, but it was working around the ancient Mars as a spy, which would seem like this never-ending pursuits of information for her customers. For as a professional spy, as you know it, she needed to be crafty enough to work multiple markets of information simultaneously and different levels of customers. Well, the ancient Mars had a very, very impressive both of of the different technologies and a multi-species citizens and civilizations, which traded freely between them for long ages on and in the planet Mars. But it was in those underpinnings of trust, or rather, what would you say, the lack of trust, which grew usually every 5th generation. Interesting equation. Strange how that occurred, but it would be the bloody hatchet. Truly, it would lead the ancient Mars down the roads of very, very vicious wars. The ancient spirit Tralaka will explain more on the ancient Mars in upcoming videos. The next 5 lives would take her to the Lyra systems of planets and moons and orbiting city platforms. This was important to add here, for this will come in a few minutes, which were more of a connecting dome-like structures stuccoed together than they were more of a platform. Now, the first life would be that of a Draco humanoid, standing at 8 foot 3 inches tall. This was not much known about her life, however. She had this black coarse hair, which was very much from the Draco side of the DNA, which flowed very abundantly on her head down to her mid-back. Usually, she was known to have combinations of these different golden crystals in her hair, positioning in very specific, artful manners depending on her moods. Her eyes, a steel black. Interesting here, steel black eyes in a color. Although she had this twin set of eyelids, the inner ones flickered than the outer ones, this also offset the colors of the eyes in little nanoseconds, which could be mesmerizing. Now, she was more of a soft-spoken Draco humanoid. A soft-spoken Draco humanoid? This does not happen very often, at least not what Tralaka remembers. This alone, which was strange, or perhaps the living universe showing a sense of humor again. For her father was this high-level council member who was responsible very greatly for the trading between the local worlds, spending much of his time on the sixth dimensional holodecks in meetings with off-worlders and others in different parts of the area. Now, it shows here that she had a career in which later she owned her own business. Now, this leans towards she was having off-world pilot's training. However, in her life, she was never seen in the streams. She was not once seen ever even piloting a craft, no matter what the size. But she would be seen working in the art departments. She would design features which would entertain the visitors to the orbiting cities in both the ports and upon the streets. Now, it was in the next 2 lives as a human humanoid on the Lyra system of planets and moons that she would be standing at 6 foot 3 inches tall. Those 2 lives were very credit profitable, though she cared not about that. But she worked in this twin career, both as a healer and as a higher law officer. Interesting combination. There was many rumors in those 2 lives about her, which some insisted that she was more of an enticer of the higher laws, meaning there's some shadowy things. However, here leaning towards the ideas that she may have somewhat abbreviated enforcing some laws and risky maneuvers, which may have seemed to be a bit shadowy. However, there is not any mentioning in those 2 lives in any file showing her ever being charged for such manners in her careers. But a very noteworthy career she had, making sure the constant perfection written files, leaving nothing to the imagination or claims to the lies. Now, she was many times honored as a high law officer in both lives. Her reputation led before her bravely. Even those who would be charged in the council courts that she had caught would admit freely upon their own that she had aided greatly in their healing from their wounds from the battle, in the same quality as she would treat her fellow officers. Yet not below her to get into a fist fight with a troublemaker or multiples of troublemakers and leave those legal workings in the cabinets, so to speak. Now, in the next two lives, she would be that of a snake humanoid, her being standing at a short 4 foot 10 inches. Wow, that's short. For many variables of snake humanoids, this was considered short. But being enlisted into the highly appraised Alliance warriors, very, very strange. This was even more strange that the ancient spirit Trolaka, as he was talking here, had a chance to go and see the ultra sleek new mini fighters, that she would be one of the pilots who could endure the intense 6 long solar years in training. Did I say 6 long solar years in training? No, it was 8 solar years in intense training, with 6 solar years of documented in the pilot seat experience. For her, she was also required to be able to operate just like any other candidate for the Alliance warriors to be a warrior. She also, even her very small size, had to know how to operate any size photon railgun, as well as the blasters and laser cannons, which were very numerous on those legendary Alliance warrior battle cruisers. And also here, the few but huge dreadnought-sized battleships whose mega twin photon railguns was nearly the full length underneath those monstrous dreadnoughts, and a single huge photon railgun mostly across the top of the ship also. Yet here, she was this very short snake humanoid as an Alliance warrior, and she would spend her 2 lives career as a pilot for some of those ultra sleek mini space fighters. The spacecrafts truly lining up to the Alliance warrior ships' reputations. Why? Because they're designed with such incredibly heavy shielding to protect the pilots, even if the rest of the plane plane gets just pulled apart, just pulled, just disintegrating all around. The capsule and in the pilot's seating was so tough it would not break apart, and it could sustain life for some time, because the Alliance warriors had to follow their honor codes, protect the troops, protect the warriors, protect the pilots. While it also had this cloaking system, which most other world's military crafts paled greatly in comparison. Now, this ultra slick mini fighter had an interlaced triple black energy engine, which had heavy duty chargers, one on each side, in order to keep those mini fighters spitting out charge after charge of energy towards a foe, whether in space or in the airs above a planet or moon. Now, this small fighter craft had massive fast speed enablements. So they were using some really, really sacred high sciences understandings to be able to create stuff like this, making for only the very, very highest trained Alliance warriors who were less than 5 feet tall to be able to pilot some, because these things were so nimble and so fast reacting. The training was incredible. But this would make for 2 long careers for her. Now, this Fortrolaka at this time